All right, today I am joined by Paul Stone to help me go through some of the biggest news stories in the world. Paul, thank you so much for joining me again.
Oh, absolutely. Great to be here. Happy top of the year to you and everyone who's listening and watching.
Oh, same to you, my friend. Want to jump right into a story here. Just some background. Paul Stone is the founder of Colonial Metals Group. They are a great business, and I love getting his perspective on economic issues. So, a new IG report came out last night that found that 90% of all IRS audits under Biden were against Americans who make less than $400,000 a year. Now, he added 88,000 new IRS agents, telling us that would be used to go after billionaires. This new report also shows that most billionaires in America are Democrats. Have we been getting lied to? I mean, my gosh, 90% of audits are on people that, regular middle income Americans, and it was justified by saying they'll go after billionaires, but of course then they didn't. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think if you look at the ethos of Washington, certainly over the last 30, 40 years, probably, pretty much since Reagan, and even kind of starting with Reagan, because he was at the forefront of, yeah, we need to outspend the Soviets. I mean, debt ballooned like crazy under Reagan. And not that I'm putting him in a bad light. It's it's like asking a soccer player to score and be the goalie at the same time. You're living in two weird worlds. You got all the money that wants more of it talking to you all day long, and us, the part to the Constitution, that aren't in DC all day long. We're out here doing our life, where we live in Nebraska and Tennessee and California and Alaska and Hawaii and just Maine and all Florida. And it's just, we're just doing our thing. We're saying, yeah, you go to Washington, we'll put you there. We like what you said at the podium. Do all that great stuff for us. That's why we put you there. But they're listening. These elected officials are listening all day to the money. The money's there all day in their offices, the lobbyists, the financial interests. So how are we going to win that? So when we look at the ethos of Washington, and I grew up outside DC, doesn't make me an expert on anything, but I always had this sense that DC puts a story out and hardly ever does that story behind the scenes, that deals are made in steakhouses and bars and people's extravagant houses, or on trips, hunting trips, fishing trips, vacations, and deals are made there. And then whatever's needed to put a face to that, perhaps sickening or elusive motivation, the face to that is put out to us as, we're going to get these, we're going to make it fair in America. We're going to get these rich people. We're going to pay their fair share and all that stuff. And it's never the case. I'm not surprised. It's sickening to hear that 95% or 90%, you said, all audits were against people making under 400 grand a year. Don't they have enough to deal with? I mean, you're attacking the middle class, the shrinking portion that's left of the middle class, upper middle class.
Yeah, it's like, okay, here's somebody that has all of this money, but they vote our way. Go after the little guy. Let's squeeze a little bit more blood out of that rock. It's just, when I read that today, I was like, oh my gosh, that's disheartening. At the same time, I read that President Trump, while in Vegas over the weekend, said that he is either going to fire those IRS agents or they can take a job at the border, so that we can actually focus on the things that matter, which is making our country safe again. Have you enjoyed watching how President Trump, within 1 week, has made huge changes on the southern border?
Yes. The things that, in any way that you can make an action that redefends the Constitution again, I'm all for that, because the Constitution is the guiding document, and it was framed in the mindset with wisdom of those who left the monarchies and had to fight an army and navy that came here to squelch their decision for freedom. So that document comes from people with experience living under centralized power. And that's where we are today. We're the colonists. That's why we called the company Colonial Metals Group, to remind people of how this country came to be. It wasn't that we washed up on a beach and everyone left us alone. We were attacked by the centralized powers of Europe, who wanted no such thing to slip out, this great country to slip out from underneath their domain. And now we have centralized power that is so oppressive, a government that has just vast size and massive inefficiencies and doing stuff we never asked for. So we are long been living in a country where the government forgot who the hell they work for, who the hell hired them, and what they owe. They owe allegiance to a document that was framed beautifully from the experience of how not to be, how not to have a country operate. And ever since Lincoln started income tax during the Civil War, if my history is right, and they put a drop dead date on it for 2 years, and they like the taste of that money stream coming into the government. The central government is now a massive power over the governorships. We had 50 presidents. If you didn't like the country you lived in, drive across the border from Texas to Louisiana and live there, by example. So we had choice making, power to the people to say, hey, we don't like the way the state runs, we're leaving. And then that mindset and those ideas get deleted. And the next person who runs against those stupid ideas, and the people come back. But now we have one country under one government that we can't sail away from. And it doesn't shock me at all. This is what happened when Nixon unhooked the money limitation by gold. He hooked the federal government up to its own financial power supply. And 54 years later, you got a government that now has decided the way to solve things is create 36 trillion in debt and to destroy the country's frickin' currency. Anything, if you were 3% the health you were, 10 years ago, how would you function? Would we sign you up to play on a team? Would we count on you to be consistent? The dollar's 3% the strength it once was, 3%. And that's not a renewable. It can't come back. You can't re-engineer strength, buying power into the dollar. It can't be done without massive pain. And that's why the word of currency changes out there in the press and has been for years.
Yeah. We'll come back to that in a minute. I don't know if you saw this. I know you've been out in Los Angeles training new employees, but Selena Gomez, the actress, puts out this video that's going viral in the liberal community. She's crying, "Oh, my people, Trump is deporting my people." First of all, he's not deporting any of your people. These aren't American citizens. They're people that illegally came into the country. She has almost no connection to them. She's worth $80 million. And yet here she is crying. Let me pull this up from Fox News, and then we'll go ahead and react to it together.
Sure.
I don't know if you've had a chance to see a video that has been going viral over the past hour or so. We're still working to clear it and show it. In fact, the Hollywood celebrity who posted it has now deleted it, I think because probably she faced a lot of backlash for it, noting even the New York Times and Fox News polls show that a majority of American respondents are in favor of deportations of criminals and gang members. She posted a video sobbing. She was crying in it. She said, "All my people are getting attacked," with the picture of a Mexican flag. Again, she has now taken that down. But what do you say to those who are out there saying that these are everyday people, these are families that are being attacked and dragged out of their homes? How do you respond to that?
I don't think we arrested any families. We've arrested public safety threats and national security threats, bottom line. And look, President Trump won the election on this one issue, securing our border and saving lives. What happened on our southern border last 4 years is the biggest national security threat this country's seen, at least in my lifetime, because we got over 2 million known gotaways. We got a 600% increase in sex trafficking. We got a record number of terrorists crossing the border on the terrorist watch list. We have 250,000 Americans die from fentanyl coming across the open border. We're going to do this job, and we're going to enforce the laws of this country. If they don't like it, then go to Congress and change the law. We're going to do this operational apology. We're going to make our community safer. We're going to save. Once we lock that border on continuous operation, you're going to see fentanyl deaths decrease, illegal alien crime decrease, sex trafficking decrease. It's just all for the good of this nation, and we're going to keep going. No apologies. We're moving forward.
All right. So I've been following this story pretty closely. I mean, most of the people that ICE is rounding up right now, these are former murderers, rapers. Yesterday, they did a sting operation in Colorado where they arrested 50 Tren De Aragua Venezuelan gang members. They found entire rooms full of guns and cash, just illegal operations going on. Selena Gomez, what are you talking about? Like they're not breaking up families. They're literally going after the criminals. Is this just part of being woke Hollywood and her jumping on the bandwagon to cry like liberals do?
Wokeism can only exist when the deletion or the evisceration of ethics and principles has taken place over a long period of time. Wokeism can only exist when we are in a culture that doesn't have to or has forgotten what the principles and truths were that we needed to honor. So what I mean by that is, there's an old saying, there's lots of them. Offense is just there to keep an honest man honest. And we don't have a fence. So I put all of the blame on Congress for not being able to make immigration more streamlined. Like, my understanding, it takes 14 years to be naturalized. That's insane. Make it a year. Interview these people down there that are coming over. Be like, hey, yeah, you're a plumber. You got a couple kids. Your wife says you don't act badly. Great. You don't have a drinking problem, drug problem. Great. Come on over. Here's where we need plumbers. Immigration is how the country happened, but having it unregulated, uncontrolled, and unmanaged is what Congress has set forth for the last 40 years. Reagan could have done something about this. He could have said, hey, my economists are telling me that in 40 years we'll be living in economic hell if we don't offset the baby boomers from retiring with new workers. That's our money problem. The whole problem, all of the debt, comes to the fact that no one could offset 60 million baby boomers from beginning to retire in 1997. If you had 60 million, 100 million people working for you, Stephen, and 60 million of them retired, what would your finances be like? You still have all the bills.
Yeah.
You can't make as much as you used to make. If they were all farmers, they aren't plowing fields anymore. We had to pay for them to live in little cottages, and we have to give them some healthcare stuff and some money to spend so they're not eating Alpo on a sidewalk. For the government lacks vision. Einstein says the mind that creates the problem cannot possess the solution. DC, therefore, can only possess problems. They have no vision on what the solutions are. So deporting people that also should have known as they started hiking here that they would be coming here illegally, essentially trespassing, their time here may not be for very long. If someone ever came to power that had the audacity to honor the laws that Congress put on the books. Congress makes the laws, the executive branch enforces them. And so she's right to cry. She's okay. She's having some trauma over it all. There may be some things not happening that she's crying over, not happening yet. But certainly deporting any criminal that isn't supposed to be here, wasn't born here, is the right thing to do. And it was always the right thing to keep them from even coming here. Having a fence, having a border wall, having a well-funded border, certainly on the south and certainly on the north, so it's equal, was the right thing for Congress to provide money for decades ago and over the last many decades. But it's Congress that let these people come here because they've made it so impossible for 14 years. How are you supposed to get here if it takes 14 years to be here legally? That's just stupid. That's not what it took Ellis Island people. They sailed here, they met him at Ellis Island, and they're like, on you go. Welcome. Welcome to America. So I'm sure they turned people away, but obviously you couldn't have much of a background check when there's no internet and that sort of thing back when Ellis Island was happening. So it's our problem and theirs. Where they live is horrific. And they're hanging people from bridges. Drug dealers seem to control every country south of the Rio Grande. They just want a better shot for their kids. It's what Kennedy said. We all just want a better life for our kids. And that's what they want. That's what all humans pretty much want. Not all, because some suck. But it's our problem. Trump is just dropping the gates. He's closing that border so people can't come here and set up a life that they might not get to keep because they broke the law, broke our own stupid laws, coming over here. But I have mad empathy for anyone living south of the Rio Grande or living anywhere where life on earth sucks where they live. But there's the last piece. America wasn't given to anyone. Lots of people died and sacrificed comforts and pleasures to come here. They can throw that same uprising where they live. Your freedom will be purchased by death. It will be purchased by sacrifices. So if you want to not walk thousands of miles to get here, then risk giving up your own life with your pitchforks and your sling blades and your machetes and whatever armament you can find and any government that you happen to live under. Yeah. That's the ultimate statement. Being human is about overcoming stuff.
Yeah. Let me switch gears with you, Paul. President Trump is getting very, very mixed reviews from his most loyal fans over this Project Stargate, where he's bringing in $500 billion from Japan and Oracle and Microsoft and ChatGPT, Sam Altman and Larry Ellison, Matayson from SoftBank Japan. But then the first thing they do is they say, we're going to unleash mRNA vaccines on everyone and turn everything into crypto. Are we walking into territory that we don't fully understand in an attempt to bring in $500 billion?
Again, and it might get boring, and I'd love your feedback, guys in the audience, gals in the audience, if what I have to offer is getting stale or just routine or just isn't sexy enough. But man, truth means truth. What Nixon did is he made it so humanity moves faster than the speed of life itself. We're out of alignment. We're always in something we've never dealt with before since then. And these days is the crescendo. AI. Yeah, let's trust the government to enact a solution to human existence that is run by computers smarter than humans. AI can consider thousands of moves, hundreds of trends, and 10,000 different outcomes in a second. You can't balance your checkbook and cook dinner at the same time. AI can. So we're looking at putting something in power that's way more powerful than the human being. And to say that the horror story of it is that AI eventually has a consciousness of itself and sees us as the problem is probably not far-fetched. I mean, funneling money, hyper intensifying the finances behind AI and cryptocurrency, it can only move to eliminate jobs, move to eliminate freedoms and independence and autonomy, and absolutely end the idea for pursuing happiness, because you won't be able to make a move that something isn't noticing. You just literally won't be able to make a move. Like if it's hooked to the GPS in your phone, it'll be able to tell how much time you spend in the bathroom. It'll be able to tell if you're having an affair because your phone is next to someone else's phone in a hotel every Wednesday from 3 to 5. I mean, it'll be noticing everything you spend money on. It can restrict what you spend money on if it's against, going against your carbon footprint that's been prescribed to you. It can go against so much. Control is the elimination of freedom. In a free democracy, the minute you start hiding behind justifying things that limit people's freedom by public safety, you don't have a democracy anymore. You absolutely don't have a democracy when it requires a weak central government and strong independent governments of the states or sectors or zones that you've set up inside your country. You have to have power close to the people, not lording over it from far away. And AI, what problems are we solving? The ability for governments to mismanage finances. There'd be no global warming today. Look, our population was 3.7 billion people in 1971. When Nixon created this financial power supply to the government that it controls completely and thinks it'll never run out of power, population on Earth today is 8.1 billion. So we've almost doubled the population in 54 years. That's the reason for global warming. There are no limits. There is no alignment with reality within humanity itself. We are being pushed faster and faster and faster past the speed of life itself, Mother Earth, if you will. And that causes us to live in disarray and unhappiness and fear and anxiety. And so if we're searching for solutions to remove symptoms, then we're just going to get more problems with even bigger symptoms. The cause is to stop financing costs with fake money and eliminate the size of government like down to 1/10 of what it is. And most of those agencies should be gone. The only reason they'd hire 80,000 IRS agents to squeeze more tax revenue out of the people is because they don't have enough money. Not having enough money isn't the government's problem. The inability for it to actually solve a problem is its problem.
Wow. I mean, one of the worries that I have is a lot of these younger Americans, they see the sexiness of crypto, but when I ask them questions about it, I'm like, okay, what's behind it? Yeah. Why is it valuable? Where's the stream of income? how do they pay millions of dollars to be publicly traded? There's no source of income. And so it kind of becomes a digital fiat currency. I mean, I understand Bitcoin and other things. I'm holding some, not a ton, but these other coins, there's 70,000 other coins that somebody behind a keyboard issued. And I worry there's just nothing really behind it.
No, there's nothing behind it. And the limitedness that gives it any potential value in a way, like drinking water from the fountain at the park is a lot less desirable than bottled water. Well, bottled water is limited, so it costs more. So when you think like the limitedness of Bitcoin supposedly is only 21 million Bitcoin. One, how do you finance the world when you only have 21 million of something? It's just ridiculous. So it's supposed to be $1 billion a coin someday so we can run our finances on that. But how could it become 42 million Bitcoin or 84 million Bitcoin? It was created in software. To me, software, like man's rules and laws are just written down on a piece of paper. Mother Nature's don't need to be written down anywhere. They are hard stops. Hard stops. I can live through a fall, probably like 5, 6 feet, 10 feet, right? Fall off a ladder, it might break my back, but I live. But 100 feet, I'm not living. That's Mother Nature's limits. If I fall too hard, I'm done. I'm not going to be able to withstand that hit. So when we look at the hits we take, when it comes up against Mother Nature and the rules that she's got in place that just aren't even negotiable, we are forced to live in reality. Can't have something for nothing. This is a world that has just gone on where image means everything, how something shows up on a screen, sound bites without any real meaning. When you think about what's behind a human being, what's behind me right now is a chicken and pasta dinner from last night that I made myself. Otherwise, if I don't put real stuff inside me, I'm not real anymore. I'm dead. So money's the same way to me. I'm an untrained economist and not a financial advisor, and my crystal ball is still a magic 8-ball. But when I look back through history, one of the first cool things I ever heard coming into this industry in precious metals was gold is truth in money. So if you make gold lenses for eyeglasses out of gold, foil, if you will, you start to see all the falsehoods looking backwards, and you can easily see all the falsehoods looking forwards. AI, supercomputing. The supercomputer that China has is supposedly 10 or 100 times more powerful than Google's. When that thing is unleashed, man, it uses light to operate. It'll run through any firewall, any password protected, anything in a second, like a bulldozer, like a D9 Caterpillar going through a 100-year-old barn. Like it wouldn't even notice it was hitting something. The world is seeming to me to become completely unsafe place to be dependent on. So if we're dependent on the dollar and the financial system of the euro or any country's currency, then we are in a dinghy attached to the Titanic. Bitcoin is attached to all of that. Only gold and silver, hard work, bullets might be what causes you to maintain your own autonomy someday. That's why I'm in this business. I got into the business because it was a solution to a problem. And like lots of guys, we like to solve problems. And if I'm doing some mansplaining, I apologize. But when I look at what this solution is of precious metals, it's money that isn't in the dollar. It's money that isn't man-made. And it is money that isn't run by a central government. And that's why you could find safety there. And I'm not saying it might be the greatest, most perfect option. But when you look at the 4 options you can choose from, it's cash in a safe at home, in the financial world, in real estate, or in the vault. That's it. Those seem, and I would include Bitcoin or any cryptocurrency in man-made finances because it's made by a computer, made by a man, made by a human being.
Yeah.
How are you in control of that? If they split Bitcoin or whatever coin they come out with eventually, there's going to be a crypto-issued dollar out of the Fed someday. The dollar's worth 3 cents. You got to retread those tires for another 100-year financial journey, theoretically speaking. It may not be 100 years. Probably going to end in ruin. What came out of the government, other than maybe the space program, that was altruistic and incredible? What plan of theirs ever came out of the government that did not cause more injury as it also tried to cause a solution? Can anyone think of any?
Not off the top of my head.
Yeah. That's what sucks, because if there were some, we'd be, in 1984. In 1976. In 1910. When? Since the Great Depression, The example has been set. The die was cast that we solve our problems with more money by penalizing the people. They said gold's not money anymore in 1933. They still backed the dollar by it, but they jumped gold's price from 20 to 35 an ounce, which means if you had $100 in the bank, it was now depreciated by 40%. That's so they could print and get the sheer size of this. $5 billion to fund the New Deal, shovel-ready projects. And we were a country that was still under construction. So we needed rail, we needed hydroelectric, we needed some parks, we needed, stuff. But that's what lit the fuse and fires for the corporate world again. Started making boots and steel and shovels and picks and all that stuff. But it was never the example I've never seen is the government comes to the people and go, we are in a world of hell. How should we solve this? They just make decisions that penalize the people who live here, just like the illegal immigration. Thinking it's funny, these damn Democrats at fentanyl killing a couple 100,000 people, mostly kids, that you can't even know they have a drug problem, and they may not have. They were at some party, they're 16 years old, they're like, try this, and now they're dead. And you know how painful it is I don't know, but how painful is it for parents? I lost a brother last year at 47, maybe from the vaccine. His heart stopped working when he got up to go to the bathroom at 2 a.m. This is horrific stuff. I lay all of this at the doorstep of Washington, and there's no man or woman who can come and just change it all. Literally, the solutions for life have to come from us and our lives. And we can't have a force that comes in between us saying we know better, because they don't. And it's proven. Got a couple 100 years of government solutions set applied to problems, and they just create more problems.
Yeah. Let me share a cool story with you. You mentioned, well, I also mentioned that with most of these cryptos that everyone's so excited about, there's nothing behind them, right? Meanwhile, a couple of days ago, I'm waiting for my wife, and I see this woman. She's in a Rio Tinto mining outfit, right? Uh-huh. I say, hey, I own stock in Rio Tinto because I believe in raw stuff being pulled out of the ground. I said, is it true that you guys are operating 24 hours a day? And she said, yes. Those big, people can Google this. These dump trucks are as big as a house. Yep. And they are literally a line of them, like watching ants on the Nature Channel. They go up all the way down into the mine. There's people doing dynamite, blowing up the rock. And then these huge scoopers come in and they dump these, and then they come all the way back out. 24 hours a day, millions of dollars of effort to get gold, silver, copper, palladium, platinum, whatever, out of the earth. And then one day a year, they come in with all of these trucks and they haul like $50 million worth of gold out of there in one day. Boom. They just sweep it all out of there because it becomes a liability. It's so valuable. Anyway, my point is there's so much energy and effort that went in to creating that gold coin. That's why it has value. Where crypto, you literally might have a nerd in their parents' basement that creates a crypto and then decides, oh, there's 70,000 of these, they're worth $3 or whatever. They put it out onto the market and it takes off. We're seeing these pump and dump schemes. Anyway, I just thought that was really cool as she explained how much effort goes in 24 hours a day to extract those precious metals out of planet Earth. I was like, whoa, that blew me away.
Yeah. Now compare that to the true nature of limitedness, because we can only find with the industry, the mining industry only seems to be able to add 1% more gold and silver to the above ground supply every year. So there can't really be any inflation or deflation of the value of gold because you're not able to add a bunch of it so quickly that it dilutes the value of it. You know what I mean? Around the world. But they can create $1 trillion just in new debt in less than 100 days. If you think about, and again, not a financial advisor, but the Dow Jones is at 14,000 during Bush, January of 2008, and it craters to a low of 7,000, and I think it was February of 2009. So over the last, so will there be 8? So now 17 years, the Dow Jones is up more than from that high, up what, a factor of 3.5, 350%. But we've only added 17% more gold in the last 17 years, high to high. So in that limited nature, you truly are going to force governments to say, we don't have any money to solve these problems. We have to go talk to the private practice experts that have some experience in this realm of whatever this problem's about. They can't subvert the expert knowledge in the country. You know, lights out leaders of Exxon and Dow Chemical and biophysicists aren't staffing the government agencies, man. They're out in private practice where they can work with other brilliant people. DC isn't staffed with these problem solvers. In a way, it might be staffed, because every government seems to have this track record from Rome to now, is staffed by people who are avoiding solving problems. Avoiding them. Like the ones that fill the agencies. And when you look at the jobs reports, it's only really the government that's been doing all this hiring since 2008. You know, $75 billion payroll when Reagan was around for the government for the year. Today it's 1.4 trillion from what I've read. So that's a 1,600% increase in the size of government. Shouldn't we have less problems? I guarantee you, if we took all the Fortune 500 companies and shoved them into agencies in DC and told them you have to still turn a profit, the country would run lights out. Lights out. Mainly because you have the dynamic problem-solving mind, the one that's looking for problems to solve to make their career on, whether it's, you know, a trial attorney that's trying to win their argument over the other person's argument, or a physicist or an engineer of some kind, or, you know, school teachers who run lights out schools where everyone does well and goes on to college. Those kinds of people don't seem to be what fully staffs governments anywhere from Rome to US. So any boiling down, anytime I'm on a show like yours, Stephen, God bless you for having me and putting up with me. It's just to try and wake people up that there's two worlds, like we started talking about in the show. There's Main Street, and then there's Washington, D.C., and whatever's attached to that. And it's the people that whisper in these elected officials' ears Monday through Friday that are winning in getting what they... We just get campaign slogans. And I know Trump is there, but he's still going to run up against a $1.4 trillion machine. And he's going to run up against a Congress that is not going to just gut its budget by $2 trillion. It's just not. That means cuts in their states. That means they run the risk of not getting reelected. Everyone wants things to run right. Fixing that seems to be a horror show. Eventually, though, Mother Nature comes in and goes, your money's worthless. The game is over. And what the dollar used to power can't power anymore. And so whatever, if I quit eating, you know, I could, you know, you can live a couple months without eating, but I'm not going to be able to do much. And eventually I would die. So whatever resource I depend on to keep a heart beating in my chest, if that resource goes away, I eventually die. I end my life sooner than I might have. The dollar's life is ending way sooner than it might have. It might have lasted 1,000 years. It's only lasted 54 since Nixon ended the gold standard, because now it's worth 3 cents.
Wow. Okay, let me, I want to run a clip for us to listen to and react to. This is billionaire Ray Dalio, one of the best investors of all times. Yep. He says a couple of things that shocked me. Let's watch it together, and then we'll comment on it.
Bitcoin. Yeah, you have been a holder for quite a while now. I don't know how big a portion of your little, like 1%, kind of little,
little like that.
You've done more than well with it. What do you think happens now?
I think the important thing is, what is your alternative money, and do you have an alternative money? Not a lot. I have, by the way, and I won't talk about myself, but I think an investor, if you look, you will reduce the risk of your portfolio if you have 10 to 12 or 15% in gold, so, because it has a negative correlation.
That's in gold, but would you do more in Bitcoin?
Or let's call it anti-money.
Okay, but would you do 10% in Bitcoin today at $104,000 a Bitcoin?
No. And again, what I do is another thing. But for me personally, Bitcoin is not a central bank reserve. Right. It's not going to be bought by alternative governments right now.
It might with the strategic Bitcoin reserve if that happens.
But unlikely, only because it's so easy to control and follow. You know, it's not blind. But I'm not saying yes or no.
Okay.
You know, I'm just saying think about the value of debt and money.
Right.
Think about the value of debt and money. When debt is money, because throughout history, there's always the interest rate that you get that's the temptation. And is it enough to deal with that supply-demand
Let
problem?
me ask you a different question.
Okay. What are your thoughts on that? And then I'll share the two things that kind of jumped out at me.
We should all be very grateful for Ray Dalio, who made his career in the, in the equities world. And I would just love for someone, and he comes out and he flips the script and he's put his big analysis and expert research team on another report he created a few years ago, The Rise and Fall of Empires. And it's measuring the US and China, but it also maps out all the empires that came and went before us. And what you get from that is they all end. And you would think, well, what's the common denominator? Is it the incredible people that invented all this great stuff that ended up causing an empire for themselves? Well, in the old days, it was the king that probably died, and was the next king was like, I don't want war anymore. Like England took over countries. France took over countries for a few of the empires. The Ottoman Empire, go back. What were they doing? What was Rome? They sailed and marched towards your town, took it over, folded all the town's wealth into Rome, and that's how they grew. And eventually, when there was nothing left to take over and there was no new money to add, the empire failed in on itself. How was our empire created? It wasn't by taking over Puerto Rico and Guam, right? It was by printing massive amounts of money. And it was all hidden during this money printing time by the baby boomers, the 60 million person population bubble rolling through your economy, masked the major troubles that money printing would eventually create for us because they were on the production side. You lose that 60, 70 million person workforce to retirement. You now have a cost you never had before, and it's massive. And it goes on for a long, 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 long time. When Social Security was created, there were 44 workers for one retiree. Today, there's 3 workers for one retiree. So a financial sled that you'd had to pull without snow was easy to pull with 44 people. Pulling it with 3 is impossible. So the government has to print. It has to grease the skids. And as it prints, it kills the currency. So I'm very grateful for someone who made massive fortune and a massive career being brilliant in the equities world to flip the script some and say this zany finance crap is going to blow our system up one day. And you should pay attention to what your choices are. Gold and silver is real and everything else is man-made, and then therefore has a drop dead date on it, like a bridge, like the electrical system in a city, like the plumbing system. You ever go into an old house, it's 100 years old, you rip the drywall out. The drywall they made back then had horsehair in it. So you modernize, right? But it has to be upgraded. It has to be replaced. That takes cost and time and effort. Gold doesn't take any other than discovering it. When you look at leaning on something that comes from the earth, it can't really let you down. When man screws around with it, like GMO food and all the crap we eat, we've talked about a society that's bloated and overweight shamefully. And it's not because we're bad people. It's because the food we're eating is bad for us. And we live in this world of constant stress and anxiety. Of course, we're going to burn our joints out and have all these autoimmune diseases because we're living with massive amounts of cortisol in our bodies. This is stuff I've read. Maybe I'm wandering. So when I look at Ray Dalio's stuff, thank God he's willing to come out and say he's a multi-billionaire and still thinks gold and silver is relevant in one's portfolio. And you could tell he thinks that cryptocurrency is laughable because it's not real. It's not from anything real. It's just computer code. It's just some story written in, Microsoft Word.
Yeah, when he used to run, I think it was Bridgewater.
Yeah, Bridgewater.
I think you had to have $5 billion to be his client.
5 million, maybe.
Or 5 million, maybe 5 million. Excuse me.
Yeah, it's the largest hedge fund ever.
Yeah, so the two things that stuck out to me, Paul, was they're trying to say, oh well, can't crypto solve all of these? And he goes, what's your alternative money?
Yeah.
And they're like, well, what about Bitcoin? He's like, no, gold and silver. And then he's like, no, but I want to talk about crypto. He goes, no, if you want to reduce the risk on your portfolio, you should have 10 to 15% gold and silver. Now, that was the second thing that shocked me because I've always been told you should have around 5%. He's now tripled that. That kind of shocked me.
Yeah. And, the pitch always seems to be to diversify. And I have thoughts about that I'll keep to myself. But when you're under attack, you don't run in 20 different directions. You circle the wagons. You take that hill. You find that cave. You find shelter. Shelter is a solitary place. It's unified. It's singular. So if you're under attack from government policy and whatever, the financial powers that be are, against the future version of your money being worth anything. So if you're worth $1 million, that's in the dollar. If you want to just kind of guess at how inflated that wealth actually is and actually isn't yours, just understand it would take 33 US dollars today to buy something that cost $1 in the 40s or the 50s. $33. So just divide, mathematically speaking, math is the one thing that can't get on a microphone. And that's what I try to do. I try to give a voice to math. Math is saying this is all a charade. And the next version of that charade is money that lives in a computer. At least paper comes from the earth. And to me, paper, the invention of paper money, was just a better way, easier way to carry gold and silver. Because now you didn't have to. You carried the paper representation of gold and silver. Eventually what Nixon did is said, you know what, we need to outspend the communists. I'm sure this is what was going through their head. And they've been printing money already. Interest rates in 1960 was 1%. In 1965, it was 6%. They had to raise rates 600%. Where's the inflation coming from if we're on the gold standard still? It's coming because they're already printing money. They're already ignoring the law. They're already ignoring the limits of reality. And so Europe says, hey, you guys are creating inflation, and it's around the world. So when we create inflation, the whole world feels it. So Europe starts saying, we want our gold back, because they had shipped it to us at the end of World War II to say, hey, we'll increase all the gold you have so you can print enough money so we can all run on the dollar. There'll be enough liquidity. And in the late 60s, they're saying, we want our gold back. Well, that forces Nixon into either getting truthful and honest and inviting everyone in to solve this, problem of finance that affects the globe, or create a lie and live with the lie. And that's what he did. He said, screw you want your gold back. We're just going to say the dollar doesn't have anything to do with gold anymore. So our financial system today is built on a lie from 54 years ago. And every president since and every Congress has doubled down on that BS. And now there's modern monetary theory that thinks that that money's a commodity and the government can just create as much of it as it wants. And there'll be no side effects. And now there's a whole bunch of profiteers that think, well, we'll just create our own coin under the guise of having autonomous money. That's how Bitcoin came to the earth. Money no one knows you have and purchases no one knows you made. That was the mission. Autonomous money that no one knows you have or can track or see what you're doing with it. And then we saw when they hijacked the Colonial Pipeline a few years ago and extorted $5 million in Bitcoin to be paid as ransom, the FBI tracked it down. So what is crypto? The only version of money that would have a benefit to, I won't say only, but a strong benefit to us having a money that isn't governmental would be so that we can stop living fully under the government boot. Even though the government certainly wouldn't like to hear that seditious kind of talk. But the frickin' Constitution was designed for us to maintain autonomy in perpetuity. And if you don't have autonomy, you don't have freedom. You don't have privacy, and you don't have individuality. You don't have hope, and you do not have a pursuit for happiness. So when the government and all these stupid ideas eventually ruin the show, like rearranging furniture on the Titanic, you got to realize you're still tied, in my opinion, to the Titanic in a dinghy in crypto. And the only way off the boat is to roll to an island that's laden with gold and silver.
Yeah. Again, Ray Dalio, multi-billionaire, only worked with the elite of the elite, does all of this research. And now he's telling everybody 10 to 15% of your portfolio, if you want to minimize the risk, should be in an alternative money source, which would be gold and silver. It blew my mind when I saw that. Paul, I want to thank you for coming on and going over these big news stories with me. I always appreciate it. If anybody wants to learn about gold and silver, they can certainly call Colonial Metals Group, 800-807-2143, or go to colonialmetalsgroup.com. They are a great group to work with. Thank you so much for coming on. Thank you for sponsoring the channel. I know that this is just you and me chatting because I enjoy having you on, but I did want to give that shout out. I'm a believer in gold. I'm a believer in this country. We've got a lot of changes. I'm seeing a lot of changes that are making me happy. We'll just have to give them some time. But Paul, thank you so much for coming on, and I hope you have a great rest of your day.